war. President Trump gearing up for his high-stakes summit with Russia's Vladimir Putin tomorrow in Anchorage, Alaska. The president maintaining he will push for peace, but is prepared for the worst should Putin not agree.
Will Russia face any consequences if Vladimir Putin does not agree to stop the war after your meeting on Friday?
Yes, they will. Yeah.
What will the consequences
There will be
be?
consequences.
Sanctions, tariffs?
There will be, I don't have to say, there will be very severe consequences.
The president joining EU leaders and the president of Ukraine yesterday, Zelensky, during that virtual summit. We were all anticipating. He agreed he would not discuss territory disputes with Putin, saying that's something to be worked out between him and Zelensky. But President Trump said he was hopeful that all three leaders can work out their differences in a face-to-face meeting afterwards.
There's a very good chance that we're going to have a second meeting, which will be more productive than the first, because the first is I'm going to find out where we are and what we're doing. If the first one goes okay, we'll have a quick second one. I would like to do it almost immediately, and we'll have a quick second meeting between President Putin and President Zelensky and myself if they'd like to have me there.
The president also focusing on the realities of dealing with Putin and the importance of securing a ceasefire.
Do you believe you can convince him to stop targeting civilians in Ukraine?
Well, I'll tell you what, I've had that conversation with him. I've had a lot of good conversations with him. Then I go home and I see that a rocket hit a nursing home or a rocket hit an apartment building and people are laying dead in the street. So I guess the answer to that is no.
Well, Luke Ball, President Trump not wearing rose-colored glasses here. He knows his customer in Vladimir Putin. Your reaction?
He knows the reality, but this is the art of the deal, President. And remember, Maria, that under the Biden administration, we didn't even have a negotiating table set up. Neither side was talking to one another. President Biden was unable to bring either party to the negotiating table. And under this president, we have actually made significant progress. Any concessions that are made in this negotiation process, the left will attack the president over. But he wants to stop the war, as he has said over and over again, stop the killing in Russia and Ukraine. Let's bring peace over here. And unfortunately, many Democrats are saying that if you give even 1 inch over to Russia, if you give them any sort of concessions, that is completely and totally unacceptable, even if it means an end to the war. So I think it's completely disingenuous on their end, even heading into the commentary surrounding these negotiations.
Yeah, and I think that was part of the call yesterday, Lydia. You know, the European leaders and Zelensky do not want President Trump to suggest that Putin can have more territory. That's why I think he said, look, I'm not going to talk about territory. I want a ceasefire, and I want to know if that's possible right off the bat.
Absolutely. And I think what we're seeing unfolding is really the art of the deal, the art of President Trump's negotiation unfolding before the very public. We get to see a little bit of what President Trump is thinking. Of course, we know that he made those comments just earlier this week, a few days ago, where he said, hey, look, there might have to be a land swap or subtype in order to get a ceasefire and a peace deal done. Obviously, now that he's saying we understand that he's not going to talk about any type of exchanging of land during this particular meeting coming up on Friday with Russian President Putin. But I also was taken with some comments that former Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice made to Brett Baer in his podcast just yesterday. She said the realities of the situation and recognizing Putin is who he is, that some type of settlement or peace deal could perhaps include some ambiguity around the land. And maybe in the larger picture, that would still be a success, because that would mean in the short term an end to the senseless killing. So what I like about that is that President Trump started at one position saying, hey, we might have to talk about the land. Now he's acknowledging the other side. We're not going to talk about the land on Friday. And then the reality is that maybe we settle somewhere in the middle, but in the short term, that means an end to the killing. So that's what I've got my eye on.